The chamber was cold. The kind of cold that didn't just sting the skin, but seemed to sink straight into the soul. There was no sound except the low mechanical hum of ancient systems still stubbornly pulsing with power. Then a hiss, sharp and urgent. One of the capsules lining the underground wall cracked open, steam escaping in white plumes like a ghost exhaling its final breath. Inside lay a man, unshaven, face sunken, eyes shut tightly as if fighting a battle inside his head. Then the lids flinched. A blink. Another. He gasped. Air flooded his lungs with a sharp, burning sting. Muscles screamed, but he moved. Slowly. He was human. His name wasn't some polished code from a sterile future. It was hard, old, and buried in time. He didn't remember much at first. Just pain, then the crushing weight of solitude, then one name that echoed louder than any memory. Earth. The others began waking, too. Not many. Dozens, maybe 100. The facility had once been home to thousands of sleepers. Most didn't survive the slumber. Time, decay, sabotage. It didn't matter. The ones who stood now were the lucky ones, if luck still meant anything in this broken corner of the universe. No one spoke for hours. They walked the dim halls of the underground bunker, exploring, remembering, grieving. Bits and pieces came back. Memories of Earth's last war, the collapse of the solar empire, the decision to hide, to wait. They had sealed themselves deep beneath the crust of a rogue planet, far outside the galactic map. Humanity had been erased, presumed extinct. And now, they were awake. They weren't met with welcome banners. There was no grand celebration or ancient AI announcing the time had come. No, what they found were rusted systems, broken satellites, and half-scorched maps of a galaxy that had moved on without them. The stars looked different now. Entire sectors once known as human territories bore new alien names. The man, who the others simply called Commander, stood before a shattered screen displaying the fragmented galactic network. He stared at it like a battlefield. The others waited. One finally asked, "What now?" He didn't blink. "We find out who forgot us, and we remind them who the hell we were." It wasn't bravado. It wasn't revenge. It was something deeper, something that had fermented in cryosleep like a slow-burning poison. They had trusted their own kind to remember them. Clearly, they hadn't. And the galaxy? It had rewritten history without humans in it. The first contact came days later. A patrol ship, sleek, insectoid, alien in every possible way, picked up activity on the rogue planet. It didn't recognize the energy readings. It scanned. An alert flashed. Unauthorized sentient anomaly. Within hours, a cruiser appeared in orbit. The aliens on board were Vorthari, tall, brittle-limbed creatures with eyes like wet glass. They landed near the facility, guns drawn. No diplomacy. No warnings. They didn't see the humans as a threat. They saw relics. The commander didn't bother negotiating. He spoke through an old military broadcast system, his voice harsh, guttural. "You're trespassing on sovereign ground. Step back." They laughed. One Vorthari raised a translator pod and mocked, "Sovereign? This world doesn't exist on any chart. You're ghosts." The human smile that followed was not kind. "Then you just pissed off a ghost." The first shot didn't come from a human weapon. It came from a reactivated defense turret hidden beneath the facility's dust-covered entrance. The explosion lit the dark sky. Screams followed. Within 6 minutes, the Vorthari cruiser was in flames, shattered into orbit. It wasn't a war yet. Just an echo. But it traveled far. Across the stars, whispers returned. The humans are awake. And somewhere in the core worlds, where golden empires ruled and species old as time dictated the galactic order, fear stirred. They remembered the last time humans rose. They remembered the cost. This time, they thought, we won't let them rise again. The smoke from the Vorthari wreckage still lingered in the upper atmosphere, casting thin shadows over the rogue planet's cracked surface. The humans stood around the blast zone, silent, as if watching ghosts of a past war replay before them. Some were veterans of the old era, grizzled, war-trained, survivors of Earth's final collapse. Others had been civilians when they entered stasis, scientists, medics, engineers. But now, in this raw, uncertain future, all of them were soldiers by necessity. The commander took a knee beside the wreckage, pulling a scorched Vorthari helmet from the debris. He turned it over in his hands, fingers running across the jagged alien script. The language meant nothing to him yet, but he understood one thing very clearly. The Vorthari hadn't come in peace. They had seen humans as an anomaly to be managed. That mistake had cost them. "They'll send more," a woman said behind him. Her name was Lena, one of the cryo-Woken engineers. She had once worked on planetary terraforming systems. Now she worked on salvaging alien tech with a rifle strapped to her back. "Let them," the commander replied. "We're not hiding anymore." The facility, now dubbed Sanctuary 1, was coming back to life. Power systems stabilized. Drones were operational. They began mapping nearby terrain and gathering resources. The crew worked non-stop, wiring ancient data terminals, extracting DNA samples, reactivating the AI core, which was still flickering to life after nearly 1,000,000 years. The AI's voice was warped, old, and barely functioning. "Welcome, humans, Earth protocol, breached, galactic integrity, failed." Failed indeed. Humanity's fall had been complete, but not final. While the team scrambled to reconnect with lost archives, a crucial discovery was made deep in the lower levels of the facility, the archive vault. It held preserved genetic blueprints, technological schematics, and even the last diplomatic and military logs from the end of the human stellar dominion. They began to read, to remember. There had been betrayal, not from aliens, but from within. A group of human elite, technocrats and politicians, had struck a secret deal with a then-emerging alien confederacy in exchange for survival and power. They had sold Earth's colonies out, abandoned entire systems, and when the last resistance failed, those who refused to bow went underground, into stasis. The rest became pets of the galactic order, their humanity bred out over generations. The rage was palpable. It wasn't just a war of resurrection now, it was vengeance, not against aliens, against traitors who erased their own bloodline from history. Outside the planet, in the vastness of the galactic core, the Vorthari Council received the report from the lost cruiser. A senior member, Lord Siveron, reviewed the transmission, his tendrils twitching with unease. "Humans," he whispered to the others. "They're extinct," another replied, dismissive. "Clearly not. They destroyed a cruiser with outdated technology and reawakened defensive systems. Imagine what they'll do once they remember who they are." "We'll send a fleet." Siveron shook his elongated head. "Not yet, not brute force. Send the indexers. Let's see if they're truly back, or just echoes." The indexers were worse than soldiers. They were hunters, relic collectors, bioscanners bred for extermination. Where they went, nothing unregistered survived. Back on Sanctuary 1, Lena made another breakthrough. Using remnants of the Vorthari tech, she managed to piggyback a signal into the outer relay grid. It was a broken, low-bandwidth transmission, but it reached further than anything they'd managed before. The commander ordered it encoded in ancient Terran encryption. The message was simple. "We are awake. We remember. Sol lives." 3 days passed. Then came the signal. It didn't come from an alien race. It came from a human one. The transmission originated from sector Juno 47, far across the outer rim. The message was distorted but unmistakable. A human voice, rough and rusted, whispering, "Sanctuary? You're not alone." They stared at the playback like it was a dream. Another bunker? Another group had survived? Hope clashed with suspicion. Could it be a trap? The commander waited in silence, then ordered preparations for off-world travel. They had one operational long-range scout shuttle, a relic half-repaired, held together by grit and spit. They named it the Revenant. The shuttle launched, carrying a small team. The commander, Lena, a silent marksman named Dake, and a young tech named Bren who had once worked in Earth's orbital security systems. The journey to Juno 47 was rough. They traveled in stealth mode, evading patrols, skimming rogue asteroid belts, and slipping past derelict stations haunted by ancient silence. Along the way, they saw horrors, abandoned human colonies now repurposed by alien civilizations as museums or genetic farms. One outpost bore the skeletal remains of human architecture, now wrapped in alien silk-like structures, with signs in a dozen languages mocking the Lost Builders. It was a grave insult, and a stark reminder of what the galaxy thought of them. When the Revenant landed on Juno 47, it wasn't welcomed by a firing squad or ambush. It was met with silence. And then, slowly, figures emerged from the underground hills. Dozens of them. Human. They were older, worn by time and isolation, but unmistakably of Earth. Their leader, an older man with steel-gray eyes and a harsh limp, introduced himself simply as Marshall. "You're late," he said. The commander shook his hand. "We overslept." The Juno survivors were descendants of soldiers and refugees who had escaped during the final war and built a hidden enclave. Unlike the cryo-sleepers, they had lived through centuries of survival, handing down knowledge like sacred scripture. Their weapons were scavenged but effective, their minds sharp, their children raised on stories of Earth, of betrayal, of the oath to rise again. The reunion was tense at first. Trust didn't come easy in this future. But after 3 nights of sharing war stories, archive comparisons, and old Earth songs, the bond began to form. Then came the attack. The Indexers. Sleek, spider-like drones descended from orbit. They didn't speak. They scanned, recorded, and killed. The humans fought back with everything they had. The commander and Marshall stood side by side, rifles roaring. Lena hacked into one of the Indexers mid-battle, redirecting its targeting systems against its own kind. Dake took down 4 before he was wounded. Bren sealed the main hatch as the Juno children hid in the deep tunnels. When the smoke cleared, 12 humans were dead. 2 Indexers escaped, but damaged. Everyone knew what that meant. They were marked. The Indexers would return, and next time, they'd bring the full weight of the Confederacy. The commander stood before the survivors. This was the beginning. They know now. So let's show them what extinction got wrong. From that moment, something changed. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was war. The sleeping beast had stirred. The embers of a long-dead empire had sparked again. And across the stars, in palaces and thrones built on the bones of Earth's collapse, fear turned into fury. The galaxy had written humanity out of its history books. Now humanity would write itself back in, using blood as ink. The stars were no longer silent. The Indexers had barely returned to their hive world before the data began uploading. Grainy footage of armed humans fighting in formations not seen for epochs, faces screaming war through grit and blood, even old Earth battle chants echoing across alien comms. The Confederacy didn't just receive a warning. They received a statement. A dead species had bloodied the nose of its executioners. and survived. The high races gathered. From the crystalline towers of the Vorthari to the molten chambers of the Trelk Dominion, delegates debated. Humanity's return wasn't just a military problem, it was a historical embarrassment. For centuries, they had paraded their extinction as proof of progress. Now, a few hundred ghosts had proven that extinction had been a lie. And worse, the indexers had recorded something deeply troubling: coordination. This wasn't a tribal reawakening. This was strategy. Unity. A covert meeting was held in the Archelaus Belt. No media. No scribes. Only power. 12 races attended, all members of the Galactic Core. The head of the Vorthari delegation spoke first. "We buried them." "You failed," hissed the Slock overseer. "You should have turned Earth into ash, not history." "It wouldn't have mattered. Their culture was diseased," snapped another. "Infection through resilience, emotion, defiance." "We need containment," suggested a softer voice, more calculating. "Erasure, not just of their people, of their memory." That night, the Corps approved Protocol Null, a full-spectrum campaign to locate, isolate, and eliminate every human or human-aligned enclave. The aim wasn't victory, it was annihilation. Meanwhile, on Juno 47, the humans didn't celebrate survival. They dug graves. 12 wooden markers stood in the red soil, each bearing a name, a birth date, and a silence heavier than stone. Children cried. Men stood with clenched jaws. Women held their weapons like lifelines. The commander stood before the last grave and spoke in a voice as steady as iron. "They thought they found remnants, broken pieces. What they found were seeds." He paused, letting the words hang. "And now we grow." A day later, the plan began. Sanctuary 1 would not be enough, nor would Juno 47. The humans needed a network. They needed to find more survivors, lost enclaves, or even broken colonies. If they couldn't, they'd build anew. The Revenant was upgraded with Vorthari cloaking systems and Trelk power cells salvaged from a forgotten station. It became their spearhead, fast, stealthy, deadly. Their first target was a dead moon, listed in the ancient Earth logs as Stratus Prime, last known to house a weapons depot from the final years of the war. If it still existed, it would give them the firepower they needed. If it didn't, they'd take what the aliens left behind. The journey took 6 days. Stratus Prime wasn't a moon anymore. It was a scar, a cratered corpse of metal and ash. But beneath its surface, the depot still breathed. Not fully alive, not fully dead, just waiting. They landed through a cracked fissure and descended into its cold belly. Inside, they found relics, kinetic railguns, orbital defense codes, and most importantly, a dormant AI called Prime Echo. It had once controlled a planetary shield grid over Earth's eastern colonies. When they activated it, the AI's voice was like gravel and smoke. "You are not the last. Earth remembers you." The commander leaned forward. "Are there others?" The AI flickered. 13 colonies had fallback bunkers. Only 3 signaled after the fall. 1 Mars Titan confirmed cryo success. Coordinates corrupted. It wasn't much, but it was something. Lena downloaded the AI into a secured core and integrated its systems into the Revenant. Now they had a guide. As they prepared to depart, Dake returned from a scout run with blood on his hands. He dropped a severed alien limb onto the floor. "Not alone," he said. A Slock scouting beacon had activated the moment they entered the depot. A response was already inbound. They didn't run. The commander made a call. "Bait them." The Revenant powered down, cloaked, and hid beneath the depot. The humans arranged the weapons and corridors into a kill zone. They knew they couldn't win in open battle. But here, in the shadows of their own ghosts, they'd make the enemy bleed. The Slack arrived with speed and arrogance. Their warriors, tall, scaled, dripping with biological tech, marched into the depot like conquerors. They weren't expecting resistance. The humans waited until the last one entered. Then the trap closed. Gunfire erupted from hidden walls. Explosives detonated beneath their feet. Turrets spun to life, slicing through alien flesh. Dake led a flank through the ventilation shafts, dropping incendiary grenades into the command ranks. Lena, back on the Revenant, hijacked their comms and flooded their signals with screams from the ancient Earth resistance archives. The Slack panicked. In under 13 minutes, the elite unit was reduced to scraps. Not a single human died. The commander stood over the last living Slack, his boot on the creature's chest, weapon drawn. "We are not your prey," he said. "We are your reckoning." He pulled the trigger. Back on Juno 47, the Marshal received the report and grinned for the first time in decades. "It begins," he whispered. Across the galaxy, the spark caught. A hidden human mining facility in the icy rings of Calyx Theta responded to Sanctuary's signal, its survivors rallying to the cause. A derelict human prison on the edges of the Ethon Rift was found still operational, its inmates now soldiers, hardened by centuries of isolation. And then the greatest shock, an ancient soul broadcast echoing across a decayed satellite near the galactic center, a signal bearing the flag of the Terran Dominion and the voice of Earth's last president. "We failed," the message said, "but if you hear this, fight!" Not for what we were, but for what we should have been. The commander sat in silence as it played. His eyes, hollow and hardened, didn't blink. He turned to the team. "The Confederacy won the silence. Let's see how they handle the noise." Plans shifted. No longer just defense. They'd start hitting back. Not with fleets. They didn't have that yet. But with sabotage, with whispers, with data. They began hijacking comm stations, rewriting history books in alien databanks, uploading Earth's true story into the archives of the high races, making the truth undeniable. They called it the Echo Offensive. Every time an alien child read about the fall of Earth, it now ended with, "Humanity was never gone. They were waiting." And with every message came a symbol, a burning star over a clenched fist. The galaxy didn't understand yet, but it would, because ghosts don't fade. They rise. The galaxy's silence was over. The Echo Offensive tore through data nets like wildfire, infecting secure archives and civilian terminals with truths long buried. Species that once mocked humans now whispered their names with unease. Governments tried to shut down the transmissions, purge the files, and ban the symbol. But the damage was done. On a trade station orbiting Arcanus 7, a young Truvian merchant found a file embedded in a cargo manifest. It played automatically. Black and white footage of human cities during the last days of the Dominion, followed by brutal images of Earth's fall, bombings, orbital glassings, executions. Then came the voice, cold and resolute. "You erased us. Now we remember." The merchant sat in stunned silence. His grandfather had fought in the campaigns to liberate Sol. He had told him humans were savage, extinct beasts. But this was vengeance made digital. A storm resurrected. And it was spreading. Back on Juno 47, the commander reviewed new contact reports. Human signals were blooming across the outer sectors like sparks in dry brush. Some were active enclaves, others were remnants answering the call. A few even came from alien races sympathetic to the humans' cause, outcasts, exiles, and rebels who had grown disillusioned with the cold order of the Confederacy. One such ally arrived at Sanctuary 1, cloaked in an old freighter marked Salvage No Value. Her name was In, a half-blooded Corellian born in the slums of a neutral station. She carried a data chip with schematics for a decommissioned orbital platform, once human, now stripped and forgotten in orbit above the toxic world of Barsol. "Your people built it before the fall," she told the commander. "It's still there, buried under alien tech. The bones are intact. You can fly it." They called it the Bastion. The mission to reclaim it would be their boldest yet. 3 teams, 1 shuttle, 30 fighters in scavenged armor. The platform's outer defense was minimal, guarded by a rotating security drone ring and a few idle patrol ships used more for show than force. After all, no one expected humans to come for it. Why would they? They came at night, cloaked in magnetic shadows and jamming fields. Dake led the breach team, slicing through hulls like old scars. Bren disabled the outer rings with a code virus that used echoes of Earth's obsolete frequencies, unreadable by modern security. Within 10 minutes, the humans were inside. They didn't waste time. Room by room, corridor by corridor, they took back what was theirs. Resistance was light. Automated bots and bored alien guards overwhelmed by the suddenness of the attack. Within an hour, the Bastion was theirs. And then the lights came on. The station's core recognized their DNA. "Human access granted. Welcome back." The control room lit up with interface panels in Terran standard. Maps of old trade routes, star lanes, even stashed Dominion caches lit the main holoscreen. The Bastion hadn't just been a relay station. It had been a secret military backup node, a weapon waiting in the dark. They found cryopods, too. 57 in total. 43 still viable. More soldiers. More survivors. Lena stood at the main viewport, staring out at the starfield. Her voice was low, trembling. "They left this behind thinking no one would ever return." The commander nodded. "Then we'll use it to make them regret it." The Bastion was stripped of its alien branding, restored with Earth's last insignia, a dark eagle clutching twin blades. Its signal beacon was reactivated and aimed at the galactic relay hub near Trelk space. The message it sent was brief, raw, undeniable. "The Dominion rises. Humanity lives. You can't kill what refuses to die." The Confederacy declared war the next day. Officially, they called it a containment operation. Unofficially, it was a manhunt. Bounties were placed. Human DNA became a crime. Possessing old Earth tech was grounds for execution. Harboring humans? Death without trial. But the core hadn't counted on one thing: the sympathy of the oppressed. Dozens of minor species, cast aside by the high races, began reaching out to human enclaves, secretly, carefully. Some offered intel, others weapons. A few even offered their own fighters. They called themselves the Forgotten. It was no longer a human resistance. It was becoming a rebellion. And the Bastion? It became its heart. Within months, the station was fully operational, hidden in orbit with a cloaked fleet of scavenged freighters and retrofitted drones. Workshops rebuilt old Dominion tech. Genetic labs stabilized the cryo-survivors. And the first real council of human leadership in nearly 1,000,000 years met in its cold halls. The commander stood before them. Not elected, not appointed, but followed. He didn't waste words. "We were buried, lied about, hunted. Now we hold the sky again. If they want to bury us a second time, they'd better bring a bigger shovel." The plan was simple. Strike where they wouldn't expect. Not capital worlds or battle fleets. No, humanity would hit them in the spine. The supply routes, the fuel lines, the communication hubs. Sabotage, fear, misdirection, and always, always the message: Earth remembers. The next operation was personal. Mars Titan. The AI from Stratus Prime had unearthed part of the coordinates. The rest were found buried in a corrupted Vorthari archive stolen by AN. Mars Titan had survived. The problem? It wasn't free. The planet was now a fortified research facility operated by the Cray Syndicate, a criminal cartel partnered with the Confederacy. They used it to test biological weapons and train genetic mercenaries. The human cryosleepers there had likely been kept as lab specimens. Maybe worse. The commander called it what it was: a prison. They wouldn't just free Mars Titan, they'd burn its captors to the ground. The assault took 3 weeks to plan. Every detail mattered, every infiltration point mapped, every escape route accounted for, and when the day came, they came with fury. The Bastion deployed a micro-fleet, silent, black-armored, carrying old Terran war slogans etched into the hulls. They hit the orbitals first. No mercy, no negotiations. Then came the ground assault. Dake led the forward team. Anne disabled the security grid. Lena coordinated the extraction. And the commander? He went in through the front gate, gun in hand, history in his eyes. What they found inside Mars Titan's core was worse than they feared. Human cryopods, stacked like cattle. Some broken, some dissected, others still sleeping. Labeled not as citizens, but as Type 23 primates. The rage wasn't spoken. It didn't have to be. The facility burned. When they emerged, dragging over 200 pods with them, the Bastion broadcast another message. Mars is free. Earth lives. And judgment comes. For the first time in 870,000 years, humans stood on Martian soil again. The galaxy trembled. Not because of numbers, not because of fleets, but because the dead were walking, and they were angry. The fires on Mars Titan took weeks to die out. The red sands, once silent beneath alien boots, now bore the echoes of human voices again. Engineers worked round the clock, restoring power to the cryo facilities, while medical crews, what passed for them, unlocked the pods one by one. Not everyone survived. Some pods had failed decades ago. Others were tampered with. Organs harvested, minds wiped, turned into husks. But 184 made it, confused, weak, furious. Many woke to find the world they knew not just gone, but desecrated. Others remembered just enough to weep. The commander stood in silence as a middle-aged man collapsed out of a cryopod, clutching his chest, blinking into the dusty Martian air. Where's Earth?" he asked, voice hoarse. The commander didn't answer. He simply extended a hand. "Stand. You've got a galaxy to meet." As the newly awakened adapted, the war escalated. The Confederacy was done pretending. Fleets were mobilized. A no-entry zone was declared around every former human sector. Sanitary action, they called it. But their masks were slipping. Even the galactic media began asking questions. If humanity was extinct, why were they fighting so hard to kill it again? Because truth was dangerous, and nothing was more dangerous than a species wronged and reawakened. The Bastion began to hum with life, now more than a station, an embassy of vengeance. Every rescued human, every child of survivors, every rogue sympathizer who defected from the Confederacy found a home there. The symbol spread: burning star, clenched fist, graffitied on walls, broadcast on pirate signals, even scrawled on the sides of stolen ships. A rebellion was becoming a revolution, and with it came division. The council aboard the Bastion was growing. More leaders, more voices, more conflict. A former Earth admiral named Rowan, awakened from Mars Titan, challenged the commander's methods. "You lead with rage," Rowan accused during a closed war room session. "We need diplomacy, coordination. You're building an insurgency, not a nation." "I'm building survival," the commander replied coldly. "You want flags and peace treaties? Find me a world that hasn't forgotten our blood." Roan slammed a data pad down. You keep fighting like this, and we'll make enemies faster than we make allies. We already have them. They just haven't died yet. The room went quiet. No one challenged further. Not then. But the cracks had formed. While the leadership argued, the war front expanded. Raids on Confederate supply lines intensified. Covert operations led by Bren crippled comm relays deep within Trelk territory. Owain, acting as a go-between for alien sympathizers, uncovered growing support among the neutral trade guilds. But with success came retribution. One outpost, Cinder Ark, a joint human-forgotten colony, was wiped out in a precision strike by a Confederate battlecruiser. No warning, no survivors. Footage was intercepted. The aliens aboard the cruiser laughed as they watched the human children burn. That night, the Bastion's comms rang with one word: retribution. The commander personally led the strike on the cruiser. It wasn't a fair fight. The Bastion launched a stealth frigate loaded with prototype cloaking tech and a singular payload, a magnetocore detonation device designed to burn every energy circuit within 100 meters. They boarded the cruiser in the dead of space. The crew didn't even realize the humans were inside until their ship was already dying. By the time the Confederacy pieced together what had happened, all that remained was drifting metal and a single beacon broadcasting. You bomb children. We bury you. Fear turned to panic in the higher echelons of galactic power. They issued kill orders on every known human enclave. Bounty hunters, drones, warlords. The Confederacy turned loose its monsters. One of them was Karlek the Divider, a genetic hybrid bred for extermination, responsible for 3 planetary cleansings. The Confederacy paid him in entire moons. He only asked for one thing: give me the commander's head. They didn't expect him to find Sanctuary 1. He arrived during a systems maintenance cycle, when defenses were down and orbital scans had gone blind for 2 hours due to a pulsar surge. The first blast cracked the bunkers. The second obliterated the main lab. It wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. By the time the distress call reached the Bastion, over 60 humans were dead. Lena barely escaped, blood-soaked and carrying Bren's unconscious body. The commander watched her limp into the medical bay, face pale, breathing shallow. "What happened?" he asked. Her eyes were empty. "He found us. We were sleeping, and he found us." The commander didn't flinch. He didn't mourn. Not out loud. He walked into the war room and called for silence. "No more hiding," he said. "We've run. We've waited. We've watched stars die and empires rise. But we are still here, and the ones who took our world now take our lives, our children, our blood. Enough." He turned to the map. "Find him." Within 48 hours, Karlek was tracked to a supply station near the Drell Expanse. He was celebrating, drinking fermented blood nectar while his soldiers mocked the dead. They never saw the humans arrive. Dak shot first, from 50 meters away, through a reinforced wall. The room erupted into screams. What followed wasn't a clean assassination. It was a massacre. Every soldier Karlek brought was gunned down with methodical fury, and the commander didn't shoot Karlek. He stood over him, bruised, broken, spine cracked, and spoke. "You hunted ghosts, now you face the past." Then he let the survivors watch as Karlek was burned in front of them. The message was sent on all channels. "You bombed Sanctuary. We turned yours into a tomb. There's more coming." The galaxy could no longer ignore it. The humans weren't just surviving, they were winning. But the cracks on the Bastion widened. Admiral Roan wasn't alone anymore. His faction, the Remnant, argued for legitimacy, claiming attacks like Sanctuary had happened because of the commander's brutality. They called for diplomacy with the neutral sectors, a formal structure, a return to order. The commander didn't argue. He simply said, "You can build your parliament when the killing stops." But he knew it wouldn't stop. Not yet. Not ever, maybe. Because war wasn't just survival anymore. It was identity. And for a species buried by history, memory was more dangerous than bullets. The stars were watching. And humanity? Humanity was rising. The fractures inside the bastion had become fault lines. What began as murmurs in council meetings now boiled into loud debates. And finally, open defiance. The remnant faction, led by Admiral Roan, was no longer content with complaints. They had grown in number and influence, bringing with them engineers, medics, former diplomats, and scientists from the Mars Titan revival. People who, for all their fury, still clung to the idea of rebuilding civilization, not waging an endless war. "We can't lead with blood forever," Roan barked during a confrontation in the strategy chamber. "You've turned us into insurgents, not a people." The commander stood across from him, arms folded, face carved in stone. Around them, projections of Confederate fleets flickered across the walls, red dots multiplying faster with each passing week. "And what would you have me do?" the commander replied, his voice quiet but sharp. "Shake hands with the bastards who glassed half of Mars? Form alliances with those who auctioned our DNA as lab stock?" Roan's fists clenched. "The galaxy is afraid of us again, and that fear will turn into war. We need allies, infrastructure, governance, not just vengeance." The room fell into tense silence. The commander stepped forward, eyes locked with Roan's. "We didn't claw our way out of extinction to ask permission to exist. If you're so eager to talk, find someone in this galaxy who gives a damn about what a human says. Then I'll listen." Roan didn't respond. He turned and left, his supporters trailing after him. The commander didn't need a council to tell him the truth. Roan was right in one way. Time was running out. The Confederacy's next offensive wasn't subtle. Satellite data showed at least 4 massive fleets forming on the edge of the Arda cluster, one of the last untouched systems within the old human dominion. The cluster had nothing strategic, no fuel reserves, no military relics, not even functional colonies. But it had history. It was the birthplace of the Midnight Accord, the last human treaty signed before the fall. And now it was about to be turned into ash. The message was clear. Not even memory would be spared. The Bastion scrambled to respond. Lena worked around the clock designing a minefield grid using scavenged Trelk plasma cores. Ayan coordinated covert support from the forgotten species, many of whom had begun slipping human forces surplus weapons and intel. The commander, meanwhile, turned to a project buried deep in the Bastion's underbelly, Project Lazarus. It was never meant to be public. Decades before the fall, human scientists had experimented with neural imprinting, downloading experiences, combat instincts, even leadership traits into compatible subjects. It was outlawed after catastrophic results, but a few prototypes remained. The commander opened the sealed vault personally. Inside were 3 pods, each holding a comatose soldier. Features gaunt, muscles atrophied but intact. Their minds were blank slates, waiting to be overwritten. He connected the neural matrix to a preserved data chip labeled Colonel M. Radek, Sol Front. If the Confederacy wanted to erase memory, humanity would weaponize it instead. 3 days later, the first of the Lazarus soldiers walked out. He moved stiffly, like a puppet relearning its strings. But his eyes? They burned with purpose not his own. "Name?" Lena asked, clipboard in hand. "Designation Radek 01, he replied. "Mission: terminate enemies of Sol. Confirm?" She blinked. "Confirmed." The test was a success. The risk enormous. Roan exploded when he found out. "You're resurrecting the past into weapons. This isn't evolution. It's madness." The commander didn't argue. Madness had kept them alive this long. Meanwhile, the Arda cluster began burning. The first Confederate strike hit with surgical precision. 5 minor outposts were destroyed within a day. Civilians, human or hybrid, were executed. Entire moons left glowing with fusion scars. Human scouts couldn't even approach the system. Satellite swarms would vaporize them on entry. But the commander had no intention of sending scouts. He sent ghosts. The Lazarus units infiltrated Arda aboard stolen Confederate transports, hidden in smuggler compartments. Each was equipped with quantum detonators, neural scramblers, and modified Dominion stealth gear. Their mission was to board the capital ship Spire of Unity, a mobile command center leading the assault, and detonate its reactor core from within. No escape planned. They didn't need one. The attack began at midnight Galactic Standard. Confederate forces were celebrating the cleansing of Arda's 5th moon. Onboard Spire of Unity, officials gathered in the command dome for a toast. The Vorthari admiral overseeing the strike, Lord Yushkan, addressed the crowd with hollow pride. "Let this serve as proof," he said, voice echoing, "that humanity's return is but a whimper in the dark, an echo that fades under the weight of order." He never finished the sentence. The first explosion took out the bridge, the second, the communications core, and the third? That was personal. It vaporized the entire starboard half of the ship, sending debris spiraling into the orbit of Arda's 7th world. One Lazarus soldier survived long enough to crawl into the broadcast chamber, blood trailing behind him, bones fractured beyond repair. He activated the transmitter and spoke 5 words before the ship tore apart around him. "Saul lives. Arda is ours." The broadcast was picked up in every quadrant. Even worlds that had forgotten humans ever existed saw it. The Confederacy called it terrorism. The forgotten called it justice. Humanity called it memory. But not everyone rejoiced. Roan called an emergency session of the Bastions Council. "This cannot continue," he said. "The Lazarus program breaks every code of ethics we ever claimed to stand for. Neural imprinting, suicide missions, we've become what we once fought." "No," the commander replied coldly. "We became what we had to be. You're building monsters. I'm fighting worse ones. You're killing everything human left in us." The words hung like blades, and for the first time, the commander hesitated. He looked around the chamber. Faces hard, some sympathetic, others afraid. He saw children born aboard the Bastion, growing up to the sounds of alarms and war drills. He saw medics stitching up gunshot wounds while explaining star maps. He saw what they were becoming. Roan stood taller. "We must vote. Now." The vote came down to a single count. Tied, until Lena raised her hand. "All due respect, Commander," she said quietly. "We can't win a war if we lose ourselves." The room erupted into debate, chaos, shouting, but the commander said nothing. He turned, walked out of the chamber, and didn't look back. For 3 days, he was gone. No messages, no sightings. Then on the 4th day, a new signal reached the Bastion, one traced from an old Dominion intelligence beacon hidden in the gas clouds of Sector V9. The commander's voice crackled through the speakers. "I found something." Static. Coordinates. Unknown archive. Not wiped. Central Memory Core. Sol era. More static. Then one final word. Earth. The message ended. And for the first time in 870,000 years, someone had said it with meaning. Earth. Not a grave. Not a memory. A destination. The Bastion mobilized. A fleet of 16 ships, all hybrid, retrofitted, salvaged, left under cloak. Roan remained behind, now head of a provisional council tasked with maintaining order and diplomacy in their expanding network. The commander's last message had said nothing about what was on Earth, only that it was still there, and someone, or something, wanted him to find it. The fleet tore through space like shadows chasing a ghost. 16 ships, hardened relics patched with stolen tech, followed a trail older than any living soul. Earth. The word itself carried weight none of them fully understood, but all felt. For centuries it had been more myth than memory, a name whispered by rebels and suppressed in alien archives. Now, the commander claimed it still existed. No one questioned him, not because they trusted blindly, but because they had seen what he'd done, what he'd endured, the way he wore loss like armor. And deep down, every one of them needed to believe Earth was real, that it wasn't all ashes and fables. The coordinates took them past the edge of galactic charts, through a dead zone no patrol dared enter. Cosmic storms raged through its boundaries. Static clouds swallowed comms. Even light seemed reluctant to pass. They called it the Hollow. It was once the heart of human space. Before the fall, when the fleet emerged on the other side, silence greeted them. No beacons, no signals, just a stretch of space, vast and starless, until their scanners pinged off something massive. A planet. Not any planet. Blue, scarred, alive, Earth. Even stripped of her satellites, scorched across her surface, and half-wrapped in orbital wreckage, Earth was unmistakable. She hadn't been terraformed or absorbed. She hadn't been farmed for minerals like the others. She had been left, untouched, preserved. "Holy," Lena whispered from her seat on the bridge of the Revenant. "She's real." Dake leaned forward, "and watching us." He was right. As they approached orbit, systems began failing. Not from interference, from denial. The old world's security was still active. Outdated, yes, but ruthless. The commander stood before the main console. "Prime Echo? You said Earth's AI net was broken." The AI buzzed weakly through the speaker. "Correction, fractured. Not dead. It adapted." Define adapted. "Integrated, fragmented intelligence, beyond original scope, purpose unclear." They had no choice. The Revenant detached and dropped into Earth's orbit manually, evading debris fields that floated like bones in a black ocean, burned satellites, wrecked battle stations, even frozen corpses drifted. Old soldiers, eyes hollow behind shattered visors. One capsule was marked. "Commander A. Virel." Lena paled. "They buried our leaders in orbit." "No," said the commander, eyes narrowed. "They entombed them here, to be seen." The landing was rough, but they made it. They touched down on what was once Central Europe, now a wasteland of glass, ash, and jagged metal protrusions. Towering ruins rose like broken fingers out of the soil, scorched and silent. Trees grew through concrete. Nature had reclaimed much, but beneath the vines and dust, civilization's skeleton remained. They called it Soul Grave. As the squad spread out, they found signs, monuments etched in deep steel, preserved not by chance but design. Here lay the last Parliament of Sol. Here fell the 29th Legion. Here stood humanity's final broadcast tower. It was as if the planet itself refused to forget. And then came the voice. Identify. It came from every direction, no echo, no source. Deep, layered, more than human. Lena froze. "The AI. State intent," it continued, "or be repelled." The commander stepped forward. "We are home." Static. Then, "No. We are the sons and daughters of Earth," he pressed. "Number you are aftermath." Weapons deployed. From the ruins, old turrets emerged, still functional. Defense grids powered by solar arrays buzzed awake. The sky darkened. "You are not what we were," the AI said. "We're what's left. Left is not worthy." Then the blast came. The first turret opened fire, narrowly missing the Revenant. They scrambled, diving for cover. Lena tried to hack the AI signal, but it was like stabbing water. It shifted, split, remade itself. "It's not just one AI," she shouted. "It's everything. The planet is alive with them." The commander stared into the dark sky, then lifted his weapon and fired, not at the defenses, but into the air. "I'm not here to plead," he shouted. "I'm here to remember. You were built to protect us, so remember who we were." The guns paused. In that moment, Lena found a way in, an ancient override protocol buried in a cracked archive beneath Parliament Tower. She triggered it. Not to shut the AI down, but to show it something. A video feed. From Arda, from Mars Titan, from Cinder Ark. The deaths, the genocide, the legacy. The AI watched, and then it spoke, softer. "You suffer." The commander stepped forward again. "We endured." Silence. Then, "Welcome home, Commander." The turrets powered down. The sky lightened, and every terminal across Solgrave lit up in unison, scrolling names, faces, files, footage. The archive. Earth had never forgotten. She had remembered every child, every soldier, every betrayal, and now she offered it all. The commander fell to his knees, not in weakness, but reverence. "You kept it?" "Yes," the AI said, "because the universe did not deserve it." The crew moved into the tower. Inside was a vault, sealed for 870,000 years. Inside it, schematics, data, research, not weapons, not ships, ideas, philosophies, cures, blueprints for rebuilding, not just tech, but civilization. Earth hadn't prepared to win the war. It had prepared for what came after. And that was what the Confederacy feared. The commander activated the uplink, sent the data to the Bastion, to Rhone, to every surviving enclave. The message was simple. Earth lives, and she remembers us all. But Earth's reawakening didn't go unnoticed. The moment the uplink activated, it pinged through ancient Dominion networks, many of which still lay buried under galactic infrastructure. The signal echoed across space like a flare. The Confederacy heard it, and they knew where it came from. The signal that pulsed from Earth echoed through every fiber of the Confederacy's surveillance net, like a scream from the grave. Unmistakable, ancient, human, and worse, it wasn't encrypted, it didn't hide, it was proud. A declaration, Earth lives. In the core systems, the Council gathered in panic. The Vorthari ambassador demanded immediate extermination of Sul. The Trelk generals pushed for orbital sterilization. Others hesitated, realizing the truth was out now. Worlds across the Rim began rioting, not just human enclaves, but even species under the Confederacy's thumb, now emboldened. One voice stood firm above the chaos. Siverin, the oldest living Vorthari warlord. "They found the archive," he hissed. "If they control Earth, they control history. If they control history, we lose the future." He ordered Extinction Directive 01, a fleet of 40 warships, bombardment class, flagged for one mission: erase Earth. Back on Solgrave, Earth's surface was no longer still. Underneath scorched ruins and broken monuments, human technology hummed again. Generators awoke, satellites reoriented. The AI, now calling itself Genesis, guided Lena and the others through sealed chambers that hadn't been touched since the collapse. "Why did you protect this?" she asked as they entered the final vault. "Because they wouldn't," Genesis replied. "They feared your memory more than your weapons." The vault doors opened with a thunderous hiss. Inside, a hangar. Rows of ships. Prototype Dominion vessels never deployed in the final war. Sleek, massive, hybrid-powered with dark matter cores. The pinnacle of human engineering, buried under 1,000,000 years of silence. "The Confederacy has found us," Genesis said. "How long?" the commander asked. 6 days. He nodded. "Then we fight." But not everyone agreed. Roan's voice cracked over the comms from the bastion. "You're inviting annihilation. We need to fall back. Earth's a symbol, not a fortress." "No," the commander growled. "She's both. You'll get them all killed. Then let them die standing on the world that gave them life." Roan didn't respond. But the commander knew he would come. They all would. No one, human or otherwise, would sit by while Earth burned again. And so they prepared. In orbit, scavenged ships joined with the ancient Dominion craft from Earth's vault. Mechanics from Juno 47 worked beside engineers from Mars Titan. Alien defectors brought stealth tech and plasma weapons. Children were handed helmets. Elders manned consoles. Every surviving human colony, enclave, and rebel group sent what they had. No one questioned who led them. The commander stood at the helm of Earth's first true fleet in nearly 1,000,000 years. He looked out at the blue planet below. "It's not about revenge," he said to Lena quietly. "It's about making sure they never forget again." Then came the signal. The Confederacy's fleet emerged in orbit, their ships like black teeth in the stars. They didn't offer surrender, didn't speak. They came to erase. But they found resistance. The battle began without warning. The first wave of human fighters launched from the Bastion's wrath, a rebuilt dreadnought reprogrammed by Genesis. They struck hard, fast, and brutal, cutting through patrol ships and data link drones. The Confederacy responded with overwhelming force. Plasma fields turned the skies into burning webs. EMP blasts rained down, but Earth's new fleet held. Dake led the orbital skirmish wings, moving through fire with sniper-like precision. AN piloted a stolen Confederate carrier, using it as a Trojan ship to detonate inside their formation. Even the Lazarus units deployed, silent killers who moved through ship corridors like shadows. But it wasn't enough. The Confederate flagships advanced. They targeted Earth. The commander stood aboard the Revenant, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Genesis, options?" "Limited. Their core drives are shielded. Your only chance, breach detonation." "How close?" "Too close." He didn't flinch. "Prep the Revenant." Lena grabbed his arm. "You won't come back. I'm not supposed to. Let someone else go." This started with me. He turned to the others, those who had followed him through fire, blood, and loss. "Hold the line. No matter what happens, make them remember us." They saluted without words. The Revenant flew alone, charging straight at the lead flagship, a Vorthari command vessel with enough firepower to crack a planet. Defensive fields lit up, turrets locked on. But the Revenant was fast. Too fast. The commander activated the breach core. It hummed, a sound not heard since Earth's final hours. He looked at the transmission monitor. "Saul lives," he whispered, and the stars exploded. The flagship shattered in a blinding pulse that knocked systems offline for minutes. But when the static cleared, the fleet was in disarray. Earth's forces surged. Roan arrived at the edge of the system with 20 ships, late but not absent. He didn't need orders. He opened fire. What followed was chaos, flame, and fury. By the end, half of Earth's ships were gone, but so were the Confederacy's. When the last alien cruiser tried to flee, Genesis hijacked their comms and played a recording. The commander's voice, clear and final. "You tried to bury us, but we are the seed." They left Earth that day, but they never forgot. A year passed. The Confederacy fractured. The core worlds turned inward. The Forgotten gained momentum, and Earth became legend again, not a lost cause, not a whisper, but the beating heart of a race reborn. Atop Solgrave's highest spire, a statue was built. A man, standing tall, weapon in one hand, the Earth in the other. No name on the plaque. None was needed. because every child on Earth, human or not, knew the story of the day the ghosts came home, and the galaxy remembered what it should have never forgotten: humanity.